What's going on, guys? Sticks here with the Token Minorities, bringing you the battle for Week 4 of Season 7 of the PPL, and this week we are up against none other than the Verd himself and his Tampa Bay Frogadiers. And before I get into the team, just a reminder that if you guys like this video, please leave a like, drop a comment, click that subscribe button. Helps us out a ton, and let's do more cool stuff for you guys. Now, I will have to apologize in advance. I'm going to speed through this team preview, as this has been a very busy weekend, and so I'm just going to try to go through it as quickly as possible. But Verd's team is very scary and insanely top-heavy, consisting of Celesteela, Zygarde 50, Mega Diancie, Thundurus T, Victini, Silvally, Seismitoad, Sneasel, and Vileplume. And the first thing I'm noticing is that his team is definitely, like, he has very low speed tiers. His highest speed tier is base 110, which I definitely think that I can exploit in my favor. And also, I do think that while his team is very, very scary against me, I still think that I do have what it takes in order to put on the pressure and potentially win the game. So yeah, the first mon we are going to use is a sub Life Orb Garchomp with Dragon Claw, Fire Fang, and Earthquake. Just pressures his team nicely. I initially had a sub SD Gallade, but I realized that Gallade really never was able to set up against him, so I opted just for more immediate power and immediate coverage in Garchomp, which, I mean, is ultimately why I decided to go with what I did, and especially considering that only Sneasel and Mega Diancie outspeed this thing naturally, so I can just come in. I don't even need a sub up. A sub is just kind of helpful, like if I'm in against, like, Thundurus, he wants to save it, Victini, he wants to save it, that type of thing. I will be able to sub up against them and then fire off super effective, or at least insanely hard-hitting attacks. The spread is very, very straightforward, just enough to guarantee to outspeed his Thundurus T, and then max out my attack. I decreased my EVs in order to hit an Life Orb number so that I only take 17 damage instead of 18. Next up, we have a Life Orb Greninja, running 2 Life Orb users this week with Hydro Pump, Toxic Spikes, Water Shuriken, and Ice Beam. I could have run Spikes, but I'm thinking that, okay, Vileplume is absolutely abused by my team. I have a bunch of easy switch-ins to that thing, so I'm not thinking it's going to come. So Toxic Spikes are very, very, very good against him. And initially, this was a team that I had made before, because I knew that I had a really, really busy week, that I made before, like a week before, and then all of a sudden at the deadline, Verd made a crap load of changes, so I was just like, oh, well, crap. But I decided to stick with Toxic Spikes, even though he does have the Vileplume, but like I said, Vileplume is abused by my team, so Toxic Spikes was something that still remained. And so yeah, this was just kind of a last minute, okay, I gotta revamp the team, and yeah, that's a whole different thing. I don't think changes should be able to be made at the deadline, but that's a whole nother thing entirely, not Verd's fault. He just did whatever was allowed within the league. But either way, Greninja does pressure his team insanely. I outspeed everything that doesn't have a Choice Scarf, and then just Life Orb Hydro Pump is able to decimate something, and literally the only resists he has are Seismitoad, which, I mean, I can just get up Toxic Spikes on easily, or Vileplume, which gets 2-hit KO'd by Life Orb Ice Beam. So that's really all the coverage I need. The speed is enough to guaranteed outspeed Sneasel, then maxed out my special attack, and then threw the rest into HP and the defenses just to maximize my EVs for bulk as much as possible. Next up, we do have a Zapdos, which has a pretty complicated spread, but it's actually not that complicated when you look into what the investment is for. With T-Bolt, HP Ice, Toxic, and Roost, I'm actually opting for a Pressure Zapdos this week, as against things like Mega Diancie, Thundurus, like those two special threats, and also Celesteela, I'm able to wear down their attacks much, much quicker to where Zapdos can potentially stall them out. Even though I am running a pretty fast Zapdos this week because of the Zygarde, still Zapdos is bulky enough that I should be able to take those things on plenty well, barring any hacks or anything like that. But yeah, Thunderbolt and Ice Beam just cover his team very nicely. Toxic is for things like the Seismitoad, the Silvally, maybe the Thundurus, so I'm trying to wear that thing down even faster, like a Spadef Zygarde type of thing. And then Roost, obviously, is just to regain my HP. A speed is enough to guaranteed outspeed Zygarde, and then the Spadef is to avoid a 2-hit KO from Timid Thundurus's Thunderbolt. Allow myself to roost up on that thing in order to avoid being 2-hit KO'd, yada yada yada. Next up, we have Buzzwole with Cobra Berry, which is my answer to his Zygarde with Roost, Ice Punch, Drain Punch, and Thunder Punch. Just cover his team as well as possible, just get the damage off that I need, and have the necessary move for the right situation. The speed is enough just for a general Buzzwole speed creep. The defense is for a Z Zen Headbutt from +1 Zygarde after rocks, guaranteed live that. And then I just threw the rest into Spadef in order to take other just non-stab hits as well as possible. And then Cobra Berry, because an HP flying Zygarde is definitely something that could be brought against me. Next up, we do have a Metagross with the Akaberry, Bullet Punch, Ice Punch, Thunder Punch, and Pursuit. Really just kind of cover his team well. This is mainly my way of getting rid of Victini. Victini was something that he added at the last second, and it was kind of one of those that was like, oh, well, there's a Victini now. This sucks. So yeah, last second having to re-prep for a Victini is not something that's very fun to do. So Metagross, even though it's, it's a steel type, just with the Akaberry, it's just kind of my way of trying to get rid of the Victini as quickly as possible. Just like pursuit it, maybe knock it out as it tries to U-turn out, just get some damage off on Victini to where it's in range of attacks from everything on my team. Thunder Punch and Ice Punch for, well, mainly Celesteela and Zygarde, and then Bullet Punch for the Mega Diancie, and also Ice Punch is a nice way to hit his Thunderous T. The speed is enough to speed creep 0 speed Seismitoad, as I'm not fully sure what type of speed investment Verd will go with this week if he does bring Toad. The special defense is enough to guarantee live a Specs Blue Flare from Victini after rocks. The defense is enough to live a Choice Banded V-Create after rocks. Well, actually, might not be after rocks. I think it might just be from full with the Choice Banded V-Create, because that is strong. But either way, with the Akaberry, Metagross can actually take that pretty well. And then I just threw the rest into attack in order to hit as hard as possible. And finally, we have a Normalium Z Victini as another way of checking his Normalium Z Diancie. Sorry, I was already thinking of what it was checking. To check his Victini. Yes, Diancie is for Victini. Just be able to switch in, not be 3-hit KO'd by a V-Create. Oh, potentially not 3-hit KO'd by a V-Create. Able to get up my rocks, Z Heal Bell, Moonblast, Diamond Storm just covers his team nicely. Yeah, it does invite in Celesteela, but I think the combination of Zeal Bell and Stealth Rock should be good enough to take on what I need to take on of his team. As for the investment, the defense is just enough to avoid a 2-hit KO from Banded V-Create after rocks, and then I just maxed out my Spadef so that I can potentially take hits from Thundurus and Mega Diancie as well. So yeah, that is the team. Let's just go ahead and hop right on over to the battle. Alrighty, here we are in the battle, and the first thing I'm noticing is that, first of all, he brought the freaking Vileplume. I mean, why did he bring the Vileplume? Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but also, I'm noticing he did not bring anything for my Mega Gallade, so I'm kind of regretting leaving that thing in the back. But also, Greninja absolutely goes in against his team. I mean, Specs Hydro Pump takes care of the Victini and the Diancie, and also can probably 2-hit KO the Celesteela, depending on the investment, although if it's a Spadef Celi, maybe not as much. But then Ice Beam takes care of the Thundurus, the Zygarde, and the Vileplume. So yeah, that is absolutely fantastic for me. I'm wanting to lead off with my Diancie just to get up rocks ASAP, as he does not have any removal apart from Thundurus. However, I'm thinking that he will see the fact that I have a very reliable rocker in my Diancie, so he'll try to counter lead me with his Mega Diancie and then potentially bounce back my rocks in order to live one hit from whatever my Diancie wants to go for. So I'm actually going to try to counter lead his Diancie with my Metagross, scare that thing out so that when my Diancie is in later in the game, I will be able to get up rocks. So that is exactly what I'm going to do, and let's just hop right on into it. So like I said, I'm going to be leading off with my Metagross, and I'm thinking he'll want to lead with his Diancie. As, yeah, I mean, I can just Bullet Punch that thing out, scare it out, and I mean, like, I have no reason to overpredict turn 1, so if he does lead with Diancie, I will just Bullet Punch it. But he actually ends up leading with this Thundurus, so I'm just like, oh, okay, this Thundurus is Scarf, it's probably just going to Volt Switch out. I'm going to get some very good damage off on it with a Pursuit, as he actually just goes for a Taunt turn 1, I guess predicting my Metagross to have rocks, but I mean, like, I have a Diancie, like, Diancie very obviously would have rocks in this matchup, as I get a very good chunk off. And he goes for Volt Switch right now, and this turn I actually attribute to having to play Verd at 6 in the morning because he's an Aussie. I didn't click Pursuit like that was a complete accident. I meant to click Pursuit as I just kind of went on autopilot from sleep deprivation and went for Ice Punch, as he does get a free switch into his Victini. So that really sucks. I would have gotten a very, very good chunk off on his Thunderous right there. But what this does allow me to do is get an immediate switch into my Victini. I will be able to take 2 hits from whatever this Victini wants to go for, and then I will be able to get up my rocks. He just goes for the V-Create. I mean, that's the safe play, as I am able to tank that very nicely. And then thinking that he won't just want to sack off his Victini to a Diamond Storm right now, I'm going to go for my rocks, as he actually decides to stay in, and he would have been sacking off his Victini, as Energy Ball will be a 2-hit KO. I mean, I thought about being like, okay, let's just Z Heal Bell, get back up to full health, but unfortunately, now that I am low enough, Energy Ball will be a KO at this point, so I'm like, ah, crap, well, there goes my Z move. I can't really Z Heal Bell on anything, maybe Thunderous later in the game if I can take a hit from it. So I'm just going to actually pivot through my Metagross into my Garchomp, knowing he's going to go for Energy Ball. He won't go for a V-Create, as it will more than likely not take me out, and also there's no reason for him to go for that. And then I'm going to pivot into my Garchomp on the V-Create. I just really wanted to get Garchomp in on V-Create as opposed to Energy Ball, and now that Garchomp is in, Victini is at -2 SPDEF, speed, and defense. I'm thinking that he'll want to save his Victini. Then again, I don't know why I thought that, because, I mean, he's just been playing reckless with this Victini. So I'm going to go for the sub, as he decides to stay in and go for Glaciate. So I'm just like, wow, he's just throwing away this Victini. Okay, like, I thought the Victini was a big enough threat that you would want to save it against me, but, I mean, I guess that's not what Verd does. He's just going to throw away his Victini, which is fine with me. I mean, had I not been a Life Orb variant of Chomp, I also considered Fiery MZ. I would have gone for another sub, but at this point, I can't sub, as it will just put me in range of in range of a single Life Orb hit. So I'm just going to go for the Dragon Claw. It actually does a really good chunk to the Celesteela, showing me that this is a SPDEF Celesteela. So yeah, Celesteela isn't even a switch in to my Gallade either. I'm really wondering where his switch into Gallade is. I'm going to go for the Fire Fang, as it will be a very, very easy 2-hit KO. I am going to be put very low by my Life Orb and the Leech Seed that he will get off on me this turn. And then considering that his Celesteela almost guaranteed has Protect, I'm going to pull a switch into my Metagross at this point, just because I'm thinking, okay, Selly's going to go for Protect. I can save Garchomp for an Earthquake on something like, basically, if his Celesteela goes down, if I'm able to get Garchomp in on like Victini or something later in the game, I will be able to just fire off one last very, very strong Life Orb hit. As he goes for Toxic, I'm guessing he was predicting the Zapdos. He said that they misclick later, but I think that Toxic was a very reasonable play at that point. And now I'm just going to go for the Thunder Punch, and turns out I actually knock out Celesteela. I thought Celesteela was near half, and I was like, okay, this is going to be a 2-hit KO. I'll just have to KO him, I'll just have to 2-shot him through that. But actually just knock out the Celesteela with the Thunder Punch. Brings in his Zygarde. This is the easiest Buzzwole switch of my life, but Verd has been playing very, very reckless, so I thought that he would actually try to set up or predict the Buzzwole to switch in, but he actually just goes for the 1,000 arrows. So I mean, I have no read on Verd at this point. I mean, I can't predict his plays at all, so that's very frustrating. I felt that turn, Buzzwole was just so stupidly obvious that he would try to predict that and try to take advantage of it, but no, he just clicks 1,000 arrows, whereas that would have done 7% to Buzzwole. So yeah, got no read on him. At this point, Buzzwole's in, and it is very, very, very tall Buzzwole. I'm just going to go for the Ice Punch on the Victini. I mean, it's not even a 2-hit KO. Victini comes in on rocks, but at this point, it's going to go down anyway, so I'm just going to sack off my Diancie to whatever he wants to go for, as he goes for a V-Create once again, and my Diancie will actually be able to live, which is kind of like, well, oh well. But I mean, it doesn't really matter, as Victini is going to be able to knock out my Diancie, and now I'm in an interesting situation. So what I'm going to do with this upcoming turn is, even though the Victini is kind of low in his defenses and I could just go into my Greninja, I'm actually going to go into my Garchomp, force a double down, and just be like, okay, whatever you want to do, I am going to get a knockout this turn because, well, not necessarily a knockout. I'm going to either get heavy damage or a knockout, as I'm just going to go for a Life Orb Earthquake. If he had gone Thunderous, then I would have been able to just Dragon Claw that thing, as it showed that it wasn't Scarf, so Garchomp guaranteed would have been able to outspeed. And we do end up with a double down Garchomp going down to its Life Orb and Victini just being taken out. So maybe Fire EMZ would have been better right there. But either way, going to go into my Greninja on the double down as he actually goes into the Vileplume, and I was just like, ah, crap. Well, I mean, I was kind of hoping that he would go into his Diancie or Thunderous on the double down, but he goes into Vileplume. I'm just going to pull the switch into my Zapdos, take whatever hit this Vileplume wants to go for. As he actually goes for the Stun Spore, and I was like, huh, well, that's kind of interesting at this point. But considering my Zapdos is in, I'm just going to fire off an HP Ice, whatever he wants to go into. Diancie, I mean, it'll have to come in, take rocks, and an HP Ice. Thunderous should be KO'd by it, but it actually turns out to be Yachi Thunderous, which makes a little bit more sense as to why he stayed in on my Metagross first turn, but also, I mean, lends to the fact that maybe I should have just gone for that. Well, I mean, like, had I actually gone for that second pursuit like I really wanted to, then I would have been able to knock out that Thunderous and not have to take the crit Volt Switch that he gets on me. Now, that really, really sucks. I was thinking that maybe he would just try to taunt me to prevent me from Roost stalling, as Diancie is going to come in and take an HP Ice. But yeah, he Volt Switch crits me, and I was like, oh, well, that really, really sucks. Because Diancie now doesn't even have to risk Diamond Storm missing. It can just go straight for a Moonblast and then more than likely take me out. But the funny thing is, talk to him after the game, he didn't have Moonblast. Or he didn't have Diamond Storm or Power Gem. He did not have Rock coverage. So had he not gotten that crit, Zapdos would have lived. And Thunderous, clearly the best move it had to hit me was Volt Switch. So yeah, Zapdos goes down there to a combination crit into Moonblast, and at this point, it's all but GG. I mean, I go into Greninja, I will be able to claim a KO to reduce the differential a little bit, as, I mean, I'm going to be able to knock out something like nothing can come in and take a Life Orb Hydro into an Ice Beam or just another Life Orb Hydro. As Thunderous comes in and I miss the Hydro, I mean, that doesn't matter as I'm able to knock it out, but it's just kind of like salt in the wound of like, yeah, you got crit and now we're just going to make you miss a move. But yeah, this is a very rough end game. I mean, his Vileplume comes in, and I'm thinking, okay, this has to be Yachi Vileplume because there's a 50-50 shot that his Vileplume will just go straight down to an Ice Beam if I go for it at this point. And if his Vileplume does go down to the Ice Beam, then Greninja can potentially just win the game. So I'm like, okay, Verd's not dumb. He's not just going to sack off his Vileplume, and I'm going to go into my Buzzwole as he just goes for the Stun Spore. So, yeah, I mean, he's hit, like, had he missed that Stun Spore as I stayed in with Greninja, then that would have been game. Here I thought that he was going to try to go into his Mega Diancie in order to take advantage of my Buzzwole potentially going for Ice Punch, as if I'm able to pop the Vileplume's Yachi Berry, then Greninja can potentially win the game if Zygarde does not have a Yachi Berry of its own. He ends up staying in, goes for the Strength Sap, and I'm just like, well, that kind of sucks. So I'm just going to go back into my Buzzwole, just try to pop the Vileplume's Yachi so that I can take that thing out as he just goes for another Stun Spore. And yeah, I've no real reason to not go for Ice Punch at this point. It's just thinking, okay, well, if I pop this Vileplume's Yachi, then I will be able to win the game with Greninja. And then once again, I'm thinking, okay, he can't afford to let Vileplume's Yachi get popped, or even just Vileplume get put in range of a Greninja Ice Beam. But he actually does just then. So I was just kind of like, what is he doing? Like, I was predicting the Diancie to come in, because if he got Diancie in, then Moonblast picked up a KO, and then, I mean, Vileplume plus Zygarde probably wins. So I'm just going to go for the Ice Punch right there, as it does a very, very good chunk to the Vileplume, definitely in range, and as he does not reveal to have the Yachi Berry either. So I'm like, what the heck is this Vileplume? But at this point, I'm just going to be Ice Punching until it goes down. Like, I just need to Ice Punch it repeatedly until I can just KO it with my Greninja. As, I mean, I get good enough damage off. I mean, it's right at what it would have been after the 2 rock switch-ins. So now he's going to be able to knock out my Buzzwole. I just have to pray that the Zygarde is not Scarfed or is not Yachi, and if he is Yachi, then I can get a revenge crit for what he got against my Zapdos. So I'm going to go into Greninja, fire off my Life Orb Ice Beam, and just pray that it knocks out the Vileplume, which, I mean, spoilers, it actually ends up knocking it out. So I get a crit, but I mean, the Vileplume was 100%, well, not 100%, it was very, very, very likely in range at that point. So I'm just wondering, like, he sent in Vileplume on my Greninja earlier when it would have probably gone down to an Ice Beam, and then he's going to go to his Zygarde like, okay, this Zygarde is 100% Yachi. Maybe I can get a revenge crit for him knocking, or for him putting my Zapdos in range of his Diancie. Unfortunately, that's not the case, as he is able to live. I don't get the freeze, and he will be able to knock me out with an Outrage. So, yeah, that's an insanely frustrating game for multiple reasons. First of all, I'm just going to go with the simplest one. I talked to him after the game. Well, first of all, he just didn't have a Gallade switch in. I mean, talked to him and he said his switch in was Payapa Vileplume, which does not take a knockoff into Zen Headbutt. So I'm just kind of left scratching my head, like, okay, well then, how did you plan to deal with Mega Gallade? Was your plan to speed tie it? Because he didn't even have a Scarfer either. So I'm just left wondering what his plan, had I brought Mega Gallade, would have been. But I mean, I didn't end up bringing it. It was a last-minute change, and it ended up working out for him, so a little bit frustrating for me on my end. Secondly, he asked me if the Buzzwole was Scarfed, and so that tells me that some of his plays were based off of Buzzwole being Scarfed. And it's like, dude, you saw Buzzwole switch up moves against the Vileplume. It wasn't Scarfed. So it's like, he thought Buzzwole was Scarfed even though it switched moves. And finally, the crit on Zapdos was absolutely gigantic, because Mega Diancie literally needed a max roll Moonblast into max roll Moonblast, like absolute max, like a 0.4% chance of happening in order for it to knock me out. Or he needed crits, which, I mean, either way is insane luck on his part. And because I had pressure, he only would have had 8 Moonblasts. So my game plan on the turn that he went for Moonblast and knocked me out was to just roost up repeatedly until he's out of Moonblast, and I can just start firing off HP Ices to either, like, lower the Vileplume, as Vileplume revealed that it didn't really have anything to hit Zapdos. Zygarde would have gotten its Yachi popped, so that my Greninja would have been able to KO it, or Buzzwole would have been able to KO it, and then the Thundurus would have been knocked out by HP Ice after it came back in on rocks. So Zapdos would have been able to stall out the game at that point, which really sucks, because I didn't even realize it until after the game. I was just like, okay, he had rock coverage and just didn't go for it at that point. But no, he actually needed that crit in order to knock out the Zapdos, because all I needed to do at that point was have Zapdos break the Zygarde's Yachi so that Greninja could clean up at that point. And it was just like, after the game, the realization really was just kind of like come on, like, you gotta be kidding me. So very, very frustrating game. We do take the loss, unfortunately. Good game to Verd. Hate playing Aussies because I have to play at 6 in the morning. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed watching and enjoyed my saltiness. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And this is Styx signing out. Why not? See you guys.